The rogue's blood steamed on the stone floor. Alpha Maddox Steele stood over the trembling figure of Darius Thorne, once a trusted enforcer in his Northern Patrol unit. Now, bound and broken at his feet, Darius wore the mark of a traitor, a red slash across the neck, carved not by blade but claw. Maddox's claw. The grand hall of Blackamoor Keep was silent. Every warrior, elder, and scout in the room watched with still hearts. Even the torches along the obsidian walls seemed to burn quieter under the Alpha's presence. "You traded pack secrets to the Elderglen wolves," Maddox said, his voice low, cool as steel, and just as merciless. "You gave them our roots, our numbers. You gave them children to hunt." Darius tried to speak, but Maddox crouched beside him and silenced him with a look alone. "Do you know what I hate more than rogues?" Maddox asked softly. Darius swallowed hard. "Snakes in my den," Maddox finished. He stood, expression blank, not a trace of pity in his coal-black eyes. "Execute him." Kieran, his beta and childhood friend, stepped forward without hesitation, driving a silver dagger into the traitor's chest. The blade glinted, then disappeared beneath flesh and bone. Darius gave one shuddering breath, and it was done. The hall exhaled as one, but Maddox's gaze remained fixed on the corpse. Calculating, cold dot, he turned toward the waiting crowd. "Let this be a message. You do not sell out your brothers, not for coin, not for love, not for anything." He walked down the hall, cloak sweeping behind him like a shadow. Kieran fell in beside him. "You didn't hesitate." "I never do," Maddox said. Kieran gave a tired chuckle. "And people say I'm the heartless one." "You are," Maddox replied dryly. "I'm just colder." They strode into the open air, the heavy scent of pine and snow thick on the wind. From the northern cliffs, Blackamoor stretched wide and vast, the largest territory on the continent. It was his, won with blood, held with fear. Kieran's expression shifted. "You remember what day it is?" Maddox stopped. "What day?" "She arrives today." Maddox's brow furrowed. "Who?" Kieran gave him a sidelong glance. "My sister." The sleek black SUV cut through the snow-dusted pines like a shadow. Isla Dawson stared out the window, anxiety a slow burn in her gut. It had been 6 years since she left Blackamoor, 6 years since she'd seen her brother, since she'd stepped foot in the territory ruled by the most feared Alpha in North America, Maddox Steele. Her heart twisted at the thought of him. She remembered him as cold, unreadable, and intimidating. Even as a teenager, he'd commanded silence just by entering a room. Her brother had idolized him. Everyone did. Isla had always kept her distance. She hadn't expected to return. Not after building a life for herself in the human world, studying, traveling, breathing. But Kieran had begged. Their mother's death had left a rift, and he wanted to close it. "You'll be safe here," he had promised. But Isla wasn't so sure. Her wolf stirred uneasily under her skin. Her world didn't fit here anymore. The SUV slowed near the keep gate. 2 guards stepped forward, eyes flashing gold. One of them recognized her and immediately opened the gates as the car pulled into the courtyard. Isla's breath caught. The keep looked the same dark stone, towering spires and walls that whispered of battles long past. And standing on the front steps, arms folded, was Kieran. He smiled as soon as he saw her. "About time," he said, opening the door for her. "Thought I'd have to drag you back." She hugged him tightly. "I almost turned around 3 times. "Glad you didn't." He pulled back and studied her. "You look different." "I am different," she said simply. You'll still always be the pup who cried the first time she shifted. Say that again, and I'll shift just to bite you. They laughed, and for a moment it was easy, until the door to the keep opened and a shadow filled the threshold. Maddox, he didn't speak, just looked at her, and Isla felt her wolf stir. Violently, Maddox hadn't expected to feel anything. He prided himself on control, on logic. Emotions were for weaker wolves, for alphas who forgot that power came from discipline. But when Isla stepped into the keep, framed by the cold morning light, something ancient stirred in him. Not desire, not memory, not recognition. It punched through his chest like a blade. Kieran clapped a hand on Maddox's shoulder. You remember Isla? I do, Maddox said coolly, eyes never leaving her. You've changed. So have you, Isla replied, voice steady, even as her heart thundered. Kieran didn't notice the tension. I'll show her to the east. Wing, she'll be staying in the old lunar chambers. Maddox's jaw ticked. That wing is closed. Kieran's eyes narrowed. Not anymore. She's family. Isla tilted her head. It's fine. I can stay wherever. Maddox finally looked away. Let her stay where she wants. He turned on his heel and walked away, his long stride echoing down the corridor. What's his problem? Isla whispered. Kieran sighed. That is his version of being welcoming. As Isla settled into the grand suite, she felt it again, that odd tug in her chest. Her wolf was restless, sniffing, pacing. She opened the window. The cold air didn't help. Maddox Steele was trouble, and her wolf wanted him. Maddox stood in the training yard, shirtless despite the cold, his fists pounding into a leather-wrapped post. His mind wouldn't quiet. Isla. Her scent haunted him, lavender, snow, and something else. Something fated. No. He slammed his fist harder. It couldn't be. He would have known years ago, would have felt the bond, unless... She hadn't matured yet. Some wolves didn't trigger their mating instincts until after their first full-blooded shift. Steele. Kieran's voice called out, snapping him from his thoughts. Maddox didn't stop striking. What? You planning to murder that post? Maddox's eyes narrowed. Maybe. Kieran folded his arms. She's not here to cause problems. Isla just wants peace. Give her that. I don't trust Isla. She's my sister. She's a woman in my house, Maddox said flatly. Which means she's a risk, whether you like it or not. Kieran growled low in his throat. You know, sometimes I forget how much of a bastard you are. And yet you still serve under me, Maddox replied. Deadpan. Kieran left in a huff, and Maddox finally stopped training. He stared down at his bloodied knuckles. They healed in seconds, but the tightness in his chest didn't fade. He would not give in to the bond. He didn't want a Luna, didn't need one. Power required sacrifice. Attachment was weakness. It happened by accident. Isla was walking the lower halls, exploring, when she turned a corner and collided with something solid. No dash, someone, Maddox. He caught her instantly, strong hands gripping her waist. And just like that, tit ignited. A jolt shot through both of them. Isla gasped. Maddox flinched like he'd been burned. Their wolves surged. She looked up at him, breathless. His grip tightened before he shoved her away like she'd cursed him. Don't touch me again, he said, voice ragged. Isla stirred, stunned. What was that? Nothing. It didn't feel like nothing. Maddox turned, storming down the hall without another word. But Isla stayed frozen, because in that one accidental touch, Something had awakened, and Maddox could deny it all. He wanted, they were bonded. Maddox didn't plan to mark her. Not consciously. He hadn't even allowed himself to consider it. The bond was inconvenient, unwanted. Isla was his. Beta's sister practically packed royalty, and the laws forbade any alpha from claiming the blood of his second. But instinct was older than law, and instinct didn't care. It happened in the woods behind the keep. Isla had stormed out after another cold interaction, needing air. Maddox had followed, at first, just to watch from a distance. Her presence tugged at something inside him, some primal part that refused to sleep. She crouched near the river's edge, touching the icy water. Her scent drifted toward him, wildflowers, winter wind, and something uniquely hers, something that made his wolf claw to the surface. She turned suddenly. "I know you're following me," Isla said, her voice taut with restrained frustration. "You're not subtle, Alpha." Maddox stepped into the open. "I wanted to make sure you didn't get lost," he said flatly. "You've been gone a long time. The woods aren't tame. I was raised here. I know these woods better than you do." They stared at each other, tension electric. She looked away first. "Why are you doing this? This whatever this is, you keep looking at me like I'm a problem you can't solve." Maddox didn't answer. He stepped closer, his body taut with something barely controlled. His hand lifted, hesitated, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. The moment their skin touched, the bond flared. Isla gasped. He gripped the back of her neck, roughly, but not cruelly. "You feel it too." I don't." He didn't. "Wait." His lips met her throat just below the ear, the most sacred spot between mates. His fangs slid down without warning, and before he could second-guess it, he bit. Isla cried out, not in pain, but in shock, and it was done. The mark burned red against her pale skin. The scent of the bond twisted in the air like lightning. Maddox stepped back, breath ragged. "What did you do?" she whispered, touching the mark. "I claimed you." Her eyes widened. "That's illegal, I know." She slapped him, hard. "You didn't even ask." "I didn't need to." His voice was rough, hungry. "You're mine." The walls of the keep shook from the force of Kieran's roar. He barged into Maddox's war room, the door slamming against stone. "You marked her," he bellowed. Maddox didn't flinch. He stood behind a long table, arms crossed over his chest, gaze unreadable. "I did, without her consent. She didn't reject it." "That's not the same thing." Kieran slammed his fists on the table. "That's my sister, Maddox. You crossed every line. I followed instinct. You ignored every law we swore to uphold." Maddox's eyes narrowed. "I didn't ask for the bond. You know what happens when it's fated. It burns. It takes. You think I wanted this?" Kieran was shaking with rage. "You should have fought it." "I did." Maddox's voice dropped. "But I won't apologize for what's mine." Kieran paced the room like a caged animal. "Do you have any idea what this means? The council, I'll deal with the council." "Don't be stupid," Kieran snapped. "They'll see this as a power grab. You marked the daughter of a respected Beta bloodliner, own Second's family. They'll say you're consolidating loyalty through blood." Maddox didn't answer. The silence was a warning in itself. "I trusted you," Kieran said, quieter. "Now, and you broke that." Maddox looked away for the first time. "She's not safe now," Kieran continued. "The second word gets out, I won't let anyone touch her. She needs to be protected from everyone, including you." That last sentence hung in the air like a blade. The summons arrived in the form of 3 council envoys at dawn. They wore grey cloaks, their presence grim and humorless. Elder Malaran, the one-eyed enforcer of ancient law, stood at the front, his expression carved from iron. "The council has been informed of your unlawful claim," Malaran said. "You've marked the Beta's sister without a ceremonial union or a public decree." Maddox stood tall, unbothered. "I acted under the rights granted to fated mates." "You acted under impulse," Malaran corrected. "And the council does not recognize fated bonds as an excuse for violating pack law." Kieran stood behind Maddox, arms crossed, still simmering with quiet fury but unwilling to show weakness before outsiders. "What do you want?" Maddox asked. "To assess your fitness to remain Alpha of Blackamoor." A ripple of shock swept through the hall. Kieran stepped forward. "You can't depose him over this." "We can and will," Malaran said. "If the council deems his actions a threat to territorial balance." Maddox's face remained unreadable. "If you try to remove me, you'll have a war." "We'll convene a formal hearing in 2 days," the elder said. "Until then, the girl remains isolated. She is not to leave the eastern wing. If you touch her again, Alpha... you will not live to regret it." Maddox's eyes darkened. "You dare to threaten me in my own keep. We do not threaten, we enforce." The envoys turned and left without another word. Kieran looked to Maddox. "You see what you've started." Maddox said nothing, but inside something growled. No. One would take her from him. Isla's world shrank to a single hallway. The eastern wing luxurious, yes, with high windows and silken drapes, but it felt like a prison. 2 guards stood outside her door at all times. She wasn't allowed to walk the halls, not allowed to speak with anyone besides the medic who brought her food. And Maddox hadn't come. Not once. She touched the mark on her neck, still warm, still, humming with strange energy. Her wolf didn't reject it. If anything, her wolf was restless without him. But she, the woman, was furious. She had wanted a choice. A knock at the door made her sit up, to her surprise. It wasn't Maddox. It was Kieran. He stepped inside and shut the door behind him. "How are you holding up?" Isla shrugged, like a prisoner. He sat beside her. "The council's here. They're calling a hearing." I heard. Kieran rubbed his face. "I'm sorry for all of this. You didn't mark me, but I brought you back. I trusted him." Isla looked at him. "Do you think he regrets it?" Kieran hesitated. "Maddox doesn't do regret. He does control, but I don't think he wanted this to happen either, not like this." "Then why hasn't he come?" "Because he knows seeing you will only make it worse." She swallowed. "I didn't ask for this. I know." He stood, touching her shoulder gently. "But it's done now, and I'll do everything I can to protect you even from him." Maddox sat in the war room long after midnight, a glass of untouched whiskey in his hand. The fire crackled in the hearth, casting shadows along the stone walls. He hadn't seen Isla since the marking. He could feel her, though every breath, every heartbeat through the bond. It tortured him. He could unmark her. There was a way, if he rejected the bond publicly and severed the link. The council would relent. He could keep his throne, keep peace, keep order. Kieran entered quietly, as if reading his thoughts. "You're thinking about rejecting her." Maddox didn't move. "If I do, the council leaves us alone, and if you don't, I start a war." Kieran sat across from him. Then why haven't you done it yet? Maddox's jaw tensed. Because I can't. You won't. I can't, Maddox said, finally meeting his eyes. The moment I marked her, I gave her a piece of my soul. Do you know what it feels like, Kieran? To finally have something in your grasp you never dared want to know the entire world will come for it. Kieran's voice softened. So fight for her. But don't lie to yourself. You marked her without her say. That means you owe her everything now. Maddox stood, his silhouette a dark shadow against the firelight. I will not reject her. He walked to the window and looked out into the dark woods, and I will kill anyone who tries to take her from me. The mark wouldn't stop tingling. Isla lay awake in the vast silence of the east wing, one hand pressed to her throat. The place Maddox had bitten her was no longer red, it had turned a deep, iridescent silver, the mark of a completed bond, but no ceremony, no vow, no choice, only instinct. She felt him always, in the quiet moments, in her bones, her blood. She knew if he was near, if he was angry, if he was bleeding. It was like being tethered to a storm. Kieran entered without knocking. He looked exhausted. They've started the council hearing. You're not to attend. I figured, Isla murmured. Can I ask you something? He nodded. If I rejected the bond, would it sever cleanly? Kieran flinched. Maybe, depends how strong it is. But if it doesn't, it'll kill you both. She stared at him. Do you think he'd ever let me go? Kieran looked away. Maddox doesn't let go of anything, especially what he calls his. She stood slowly. Then I need to stop being his weakness. Kieran frowned. What does that mean? It means I can't afford to be the girl hiding in silk-draped rooms anymore. The council sat in grim silence, facing Maddox across a curved stone table lit by cold fire. Elder Malloran tapped his cane once. Tell us how you became Alpha. Maddox's voice was calm. I challenged my predecessor. I won. That's not what the records say, no, Maddox agreed. The records say I slaughtered my predecessor and the council that supported him. A murmur rippled through the elders. Malloran's one good eye narrowed. That's a rebellion. It was justice. Maddox didn't blink. He allowed children to be sold to rogues. I gave them a better death than what awaited them. The others let it happen. So I killed them too. You expect us to believe this was noble? I don't expect anything, Maddox said coldly. But you ask for truth. That is mine. The room grew colder. Kieran leaned against the wall behind his Alpha, arms folded, eyes watchful. He knew what this was. They were testing Maddox's restraint, probing for weakness. They wouldn't find any. I earned this territory in blood, Maddox continued, and I've kept it safe through discipline, through fear, and now you accuse me of what? Claiming what's mine. She is the daughter of an allied bloodline, Malloran hissed. And your Beta's sister. She's my mate. Maddox's voice cracked like thunder. Fate chose her. Not law, not bloodline, not politics. Fate has no place in council halls. Maddox's smile was faint, dangerous. Then you shouldn't have invited me into one. That night, a black arrow was found embedded in the courtyard wall. No note, no scent, no sound. Only ash on the arrowhead and a sigil burned into the shaft. A bleeding moon. Kieran pulled it from the stone himself and stormed into Maddox's study. Isla was there too, standing awkwardly near the fire. This is from the Bleeding Pines pack, Kieran snapped, tossing the arrow on Maddox's desk. They know she's marked, and they're taking it as an invitation. Maddox's eyes narrowed as he inspected the sigil. They want war, he said simply. No, Kieran corrected. They want her to break the bond. Publicly, it'll humiliate you and strip your right to claim. Isla stepped closer, her voice calm. Then let them come. Both men turned to her. They think I'm weak. Maybe I am, she said, but I'm not going to hide. Kieran started to argue, but Maddox cut him off. Let her speak. She looked at Maddox. You dragged me into this bond. You didn't ask, but now that I'm in it, I'll fight for it. Not for you, not yet, but for me, for my own name. Maddox's eyes held hers for a long moment. Then he nodded. You'll train, starting tomorrow. The training yard was a brutal place, especially in winter. Snow blanketed the open stone floor, and the chill turned breath to fog. Maddox stood on the edge of the arena like a dark god-hooded, still eyes sharp. Again he barked. Isla groaned, picking herself off the ground. Her palms were scraped. Raw, her body sore. I'm not a warrior. You are now. He tossed her a wooden dagger. If you can't fight with strength, fight with precision. Use your size, speed, instinct. She gritted her teeth and charged. He dodged easily, sweeping her leg out from under her. She hit the snow hard, again. You enjoy this, she muttered, spitting snow. I enjoy seeing you survive, he said simply. Kieran watched from the edge, arms crossed. Should I feel bad for not stepping in? No, Maddox said, without looking at him. She doesn't need coddling. She needs pressure. Isla rolled to her knees, panting. You're relentless. I have to be. Why? Maddox stared at her. Because someday, someone will come for you. And if I'm not there, I want to know you can survive. Isla stood, slower this time. I'm not afraid. Good, Maddox said. Then fight like it. And she did. For the first time, she landed a strabelli, a glancing cut along his forearm. He smiled. Now we begin. Night fell, and the wind howled across the peaks. Isla leaned against the battlement wall, the stars cold above her. Her muscles ached. Her throat burned. But she felt alive. Maddox approached from behind, slow and quiet. She didn't flinch. You didn't train badly. I didn't die. That's enough. He stood beside her, not touching, but close enough to feel. The bond thrummed between them. Why did you kill your old alpha? She asked. His jaw clenched. Because he killed my sister. Isla turned to him. She was 12, Maddox said quietly. Born sickly, fragile. He said she was a drain on the pack's strength. So he gave her to a rogue colony in exchange for their territory line. They tore her apart. Isla reached for his hand before she could think. Maddox, I ripped his throat out in front of the elders. And every wolf who watched cheered. They made me alpha within the hour. There was silence. Is that what you think strength is? She asked softly. Killing first. No, surviving last. He looked at her, and for the first time, there was something vulnerable in his eyes. She stepped closer. You're not just Steele, Maddox. I have to be, not with me. He didn't answer, just leaned in and kissed her. It was hard. At first urgent, frustrated, then slower, deeper. A battle and a surrender all at once. When they pulled apart, breathless, Isla whispered, You're still an ass. Maddox smirked. You still kissed me. Don't let it go to your head. Too late. But his expression was softer now, just slightly. And Isla knew something had shifted. The storm had claimed her, but she wasn't drowning anymore. Isla could feel them, watching. Not Maddox, she knew his presence by now. The cold hum of him in her blood. No, this was different. A creeping sense of something not quite packed, not quite natural. She kept her head down as she crossed the corridor outside the keep library, steps echoing against ancient stone. 2 guards stood ahead, but she noticed neither looked at her. One stared at the wall, the other at the floor. 2, still she slowed, heart tightening. Behind her, a servant pushed a cart. He was too tall, moved too smoothly, didn't smell like anyone. From Blackmoor. Isla glanced over her shoulder. The servant met her eyes and smirked. She bolted. The corridor exploded into movement. Guards shouted. Metal clanged. The Narzavant lunged forward and Isla ducked into a side passage, sprinting blind down old hallways she barely remembered. A blur of black and steel dropped from above. Maddox, he tackled the intruder slamming the man into the wall hard enough to crack stone. His claws were out, fangs bared. A low, feral growl ripped from his throat. "Touch her again," Maddox hissed, "and I'll carve your spine out through your neck." The intruder spat blood, vanished in a puff of smoke. Witchcraft. Maddox spun to Isla, gripping her shoulders. "Are you hurt?" "No," she gasped. "But he wasn't packed. He knew who I was." Maddox looked down the empty hall, breathing hard. Then he turned, calling over his shoulder, "Kieran, find out how the bastard got in." Kieran appeared. Within moments, eyes sharp. Was he alone? "No," Isla said. "The guards. I think they were glamoured, or worse." Kieran growled. "Council spies." Maddox didn't answer. He was already walking. The council chamber inside. Blackmoor Keep hadn't been used in years. Now it was filled with whispers, cloaks, and judgmental eyes. Elder Malloran stood behind the obsidian podium, his staff gleaming. "With silver, you allowed outsiders to infiltrate your keep. Your Luna was nearly killed." "She's not Luna," one of the younger elders interjected. "She is," Maddox said flatly, stepping into the center. "I marked her, and in doing so," Malloran said, "you've unbalanced the hierarchy of allied bloodlines. Do you understand the implications?" "I understand power," Maddox said, "and I don't recognize your right to rule me." Gasps. A few council members stood. Malloran's face turned to stone. "Do you challenge the authority of the council, Alpha Steele?" Maddox's voice dropped to a growl. "I challenge your claim that the council holds dominion over me or my mate. I wasn't elected. I was made, in fire and war and blood. No one put me on this throne except every wolf I didn't kill." "You operate under the laws of the Pact," Malloran snapped. "Without it, your territory is a rogue zone." "Then call it rogue," Maddox snarled. "But this is my land, and you're on my soil." Silence. Malloran stared at him. "You defy the council. I define the council's limits." He turned his back, cloak snapping behind him, and walked out. The keep was in lockdown. Maddox had tripled the guards. Wolves patrolled the walls in full shift. No visitors, no exceptions. Isla was confined to the keep unless accompanied, and Maddox didn't let her out of sight, which is why it enraged him when she disappeared for 5 minutes. She'd gone to the edge of the garden for air. Just 5 minutes. That's when the rogue came. Isla was standing by the old moonstone statue when she felt it, a strange buzz in the air. The snow went still. Even the trees stopped moving. Then the world exploded. A rogue in full wolf form crashed through the stone wall, foam on his muzzle and hate in his eyes. Isla screamed, he lunged, and something massive, dark and furious, tackled him from the side. Maddox, he shifted mid-leap his wolf, a terrifying sight. All black, with silver streaks around his eyes and scars down his chest. He slammed the rogue into the frozen ground and tore out his throat in a single bite. Blood sprayed across the snow. Isla was frozen. Maddox shifted back, still breathing hard. You left the keep. I thought I had guards. They were decoys. Kieran ran in, blood on his hands. There were 3 others. We got them, barely. Maddox turned back to Isla. No more walks, no more unguarded moments. I didn't mean I know, he cut in. But that doesn't matter anymore. She looked at him, voice soft. Why me? Why not you? Maddox didn't answer, but the fear in his eyes said enough. They weren't attacking Maddox, they were attacking her. That truth sank in slowly, over hours, as Isla sat in the war room while Kieran laid out the attack reports. 3 rogues in total, all marked with the bleeding moon symbol. All had one target. Her. She's the weakness, Kieran muttered. Maddox's jaw ticked. She's the bond. No, Kieran said. She's leverage. And they know it, Isla stood. Then cut me out of it. Maddox's gaze snapped to her. What? I mean it. You're right, this happened because of the mark. The council, the spies, the rogues. If I break the bond, you won't, Maddox said, voice sharp enough to slice. You don't get to decide that. I already did. Silence thickened. Kieran finally spoke. She's not wrong. If they think she's your soft spot, she's not soft, Maddox barked. She trained, she fought, she bled. But that doesn't mean she should die. For you. Maddox turned away. He didn't answer. Kieran found Isla in the east courtyard at dawn, where the snow hadn't melted and her breath fogged the air. He carried 2 swords. Take one, he said. She blinked. Why? Because if you're staying, you're fighting. She stepped forward slowly, took the shorter of the 2 blades. It was heavier than it looked. Why the change of heart? She asked. Kieran gave a small smile. I still don't like it. You and him, the bond. But I saw the way he looked when you got attacked. Maddox doesn't look at anything that way. She turned the blade in her hand. He doesn't know how to love. No, Kieran agreed, but he knows how to protect, and that's something. Isla nodded. I'm not your enemy, Kieran said quietly. I never was. I never was. I know. He paused. He won't say it, but he's afraid of losing you, of what that would do to him. Then maybe he shouldn't have marked me. Maybe, Kieran said. But now that he has you're the only thing anchoring him to whatever humanity he's got left. Isla looked out over the white-capped trees and realized, for the first time, that she wasn't just surviving this bond, she was becoming part of it. The moon was high when Maddox called his most trusted wolves into the underground chamber beneath the keep. Only a dozen stood in the flickering torchlight, his personal guard. Kieran and the priestess who had sworn his blood oath when he became Alpha. No council representatives. No elder eyes. I didn't summon you for ceremony, Maddox began, voice low. I summoned you for loyalty. Kieran stood at his side, expression unreadable. Maddox's eyes cut through the room. I claimed Isla Dawson. I marked her. The council doesn't recognize it. They say it violates the pact. I say the pact is already broken. He paused. Tonight, You will witness what no outsider will. Tonight, I name her my Luna. The priestess stepped forward. Without counsel, sanction, this is blackamoor. My laws, my Luna. He stepped aside. Isla entered from the corridor, cloaked in midnight blue velvet, her hair braided with silver thread, eyes steady despite the knot in her chest. Maddox didn't smile, but he extended his hand. She took it. He turned to the priestess. Begin. The ritual was short, no public vow, no gold threads or trumpeted cheers. Just blood, a binding oath under the moon, and the pack mark carved into Isla's palm, linking her to the keep itself. It was done in silence, secrecy, and yet it changed everything. Afterward, as the others filed out, Kieran lingered. You've just lit a fire the council can't ignore. I didn't light it, Maddox replied. They did. I just stopped pretending not to see the smoke. 2 days later, the council demanded Isla's presence. They called it a hearing, but everyone in Blackamoor knew what it truly was. Sentencing. The ancient judgment circle was carved into the ice flats beyond the keep's southern cliffs, exposed to the wind and the gods. Isla stood in the center, ringed by robed elders, wolves from lesser territories, and armed guards who answered to no Alpha. Maddox walked beside her. Speak only when addressed, he murmured, and if they move toward you, you don't run. I'll be between you and everyone. I'm not afraid, Isla said. His jaw flexed. You should be. Elder Mallorin stepped forward. Isla Dawson, daughter of the Dawson bloodline, sister to Beta Kieran. You stand accused of unlawful bonding to an Alpha. Do you deny this? No. A murmur rippled through the ring. You understand the penalty. Death, she said flatly. Maddox's eyes burned into Mallorin, and yet you continue to stand by his side. I do, Isla answered. Mallorin scowled. Then so be it. The council moves to strip Alpha Maddox Steele of his title and sentence Isla Dawson to exile or execution, as decreed by No. Maddox's voice cut through the storm. You want my title? He stepped forward. Take it. Challenge. Me. Fight me. Kill me. No one moved. He turned to Isla. You want to exile her? He bared his fangs. You'll have to get through me. Mallorin's staff slammed into the ice. This is treason. This is war, Maddox snarled. And suddenly, everything broke. Steel clashed before the council could retreat. A rogue wolf planted by the elders lunged from the ring, snapping straight at Isla's throat. She dropped, rolled, and came up. With the dagger Maddox had slipped into her cloak, Maddox moved faster. He intercepted the wolf mid-air, his claws slicing its belly open with a sickening tear. Blood splattered across the snow. A second council guard came from the side. Kieran tackled him. Chaos erupted. Half the council guards turned traitor, drawing blades, shifting into wolves, striking down Blackamoor allies. But Maddox and his wolves had prepared. Torin, his scar-faced commander, gutted one of the council wolves with practiced precision. 2 more fell to Jessa, the feral lieutenant who fought with bone-tipped axes. In the center, Isla stood her ground, slashing, ducking, moving with wild instinct. She'd trained for weeks, but this wasn't practice. A sword grazed her side. She stumbled. Isla. Maddox's roar ripped across the ice. He reached her just in time, caught her before she fell, twisted, and drove a blade through her attacker's neck. The body slumped to the ice. She looked up at him, breath ragged. You're bleeding, he said. You should see the other guy. And then her legs gave out. Maddox caught her and lifted her into his arms. He turned to the scattered council. You wanted blood. He growled, you just got it. The keep was no longer one pack. Word of the hearing travelled faster than smoke. Some wolves called Maddox a traitor for defying the council, for bloodshed in sacred space. Others hailed him as a kinghood. Finally, cast off the leash of tradition, Kieran stood before Maddox's war map, where names were being divided. Loyalist, rebel, undecided. Tauren marked the names grimly. We've lost 3 villagers. Alpha's refusing your authority. They're calling you a rogue with a crown. I don't need their crowns, Maddox said. Only their obedience. Or their silence. Some won't give either. Maddox looked to Kieran. How many will stand with us? Half, Kieran answered. Maybe less once this becomes more than threats. Maddox's jaw clenched. Then I'll make an example. Not with Isla still wounded, Kieran said. They'll say she's weakening your judgment. She makes me clear. Kieran hesitated. She's strong, but she's still learning this world. She needs time. Maddox didn't respond. Later that night, as he sat by Isla's bedside, watching her sleep, her bandaged ribs rising and falling, he whispered into the dark, I'm not afraid of war. I'm afraid of losing you in it. The morning after the fracture, Maddox called a full assembly in the northern courtyard, Velwilf. Every soldier, every member of the inner circle. He stood atop the obsidian stairs, wind whipping his cloak. His voice like thunder. The council has crossed into Blackamoor without permission. They've attacked our people, our Luna, and now they threaten our sovereignty. He paused, letting his gaze sweep the crowd. I was born a weapon, raised in blood, made alpha by claw and fire, and for years I've kept my blade sheathed for peace, for alliances, for order. He drew his sword, no more. The blade caught the morning sun. The crowd tensed. Today I declare the pact broken. I renounce the council's authority. I name Blackamoor a sovereign territory, and any alpha who follows their rule over mine is free to leave now. Silence. Not one wolf moved. Kieran stepped forward, unsheathing his own blade. I stand with the alpha. Tauren followed. Then Jessa, then the guards, the scouts, the elders. Maddox nodded. Then, so it is. He turned toward the council banners mounted near the entrance. Gate dot and set them on fire. The dawn was cruel. Snow fell soft and slow as Isla stood in the circle of flame, an ancient arena, carved into the mountain stone, lined with fire, and watched by every wolf in Blackamoor. The lunar trials hadn't been performed in decades, but Maddox had demanded them. If they won't respect the bond, he'd said, voice like ice, they'll respect your strength. 3 trials. 1 for mind, 1 for body, 1 for blood. Kieran stood to the side, jaw tight. You don't have to do this, he said. Yes. I do, Isla answered, eyes fixed ahead. For me, for him, for us. Trial 1, Strategy.Isla, was placed in the war tent, given mock territories, false reports, limited resources. She had to make decisions under pressure, solve political crises, and outmaneuver an imagined rogue invasion. She did it in under an hour. When the elder overseeing the trial asked how she knew to seal off the trade routes, she simply said, because I've been watching, listening, learning. Trial 2, Combat. She fought 5 trained wolves, not at once, but one after the other, each faster than the last. She didn't win all her rounds, but she never quit. She landed 2 knockouts, broke 1 jaw, walked off a cracked rib without flinching. Torin nodded from the sidelines. She's not soft anymore. Maddox didn't speak, but his fists were clenched. His eyes never left her. Trial 3, blood, the final test, to offer her blood freely. To the keep to carve her own hand and place it on the ancient altar of the first Luna, swearing loyalty to the pack and accepting the pain of the oath. As the blade kissed her palm, Isla whispered, "Let them doubt me, I'll show them fire." She placed her hand on the altar. The blood shimmered and didn't burn. The fire around the circle flared, and every wolf dropped to one knee. She earned respect that day, but respect brings envy as the days passed. Isla found herself both revered and resented. The warriors bowed. The guards trained her harder. The keep's inner court, once cold, now opened to her. But not everyone was pleased. Lady Nerissa, once a council emissary, now acting as diplomatic liaison, voiced it first. She's untested. The trials proved tenacity, not wisdom, she said at the high table. She broke a soldier's arm with one hand. Torin muttered, "Still not wisdom." Nerissa replied coolly. Kieran kept quiet. Watching later that night, Isla entered the war room. Maddox stood alone, map spread before him. She crossed her arms. "I heard what Nerissa said." "She's nothing," Maddox answered. "She has influence, so do you." Now Isla looked at the map. "Then let me use it." He glanced up. "Want to visit the outer villages?" she said. "The ones that didn't swear loyalty yet. Let them see me, not just as your mate, but as their Luna." "That's dangerous," Maddox said. "I've survived worse." He didn't answer, but when she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. "If they threaten you, if anyone even thinks of touching you." "I know," Isla said. "You'll burn it all down." It happened during the envoy banquet to avoid a full war. Maddox had agreed to receive 3 neutral emissaries from neighboring Paxpax, loyal to neither the Council nor Blackmoor. Kieran had vetted them. Torin doubled the guard, but none of them saw it coming. A silver goblet, a toasted drink, a shared meal. Hours later, Maddox collapsed in the middle of the great hall. Blood on his lips, Isla screamed. Kieran caught him before his head hit stone. "Get the healer." The keep descended into chaos. Torin barked orders. Isla tore off Maddox's armor with shaking hands. "He's burning," she whispered. "He's burning from the inside. What is this?" "Wolfsbane wouldn't work this fast," Kieran muttered. "It's not Wolfsbane," Isla said. "It was something older, something darker." They carried him to his private chamber, laid him on the black stone bed. The healer tried roots, ice. Nothing worked. Maddox trembled in pain but wouldn't shift. Couldn't Isla sat beside him all night, wiping his brow. He woke once, grabbing her wrist, eyes wild. "Don't leave." She leaned down, pressing her forehead to his. "I'm not going anywhere." He didn't get better. Not fast enough. Not with herbs. Not with fire. Not with magic. On the 3rd day, Isla made her decision. She sent everyone out. Then she locked the chamber and sat beside his unconscious form. Her hand slipped under her tunic, pulling out a small, carved stone white as bone. Kieran had once told her it was from their mother. A talisman of protection, but Isla had always known it was more than that. She closed her eyes, placed the stone over Maddox's heart, and whispered in the old tongue, a secret her family hadn't passed down in scrolls, but in blood. The room glowed faintly. Maddox jerked, groaned. The poison in his veins pulsed, and then his breathing steadied. The color returned to his face. His fingers curled around hers. When his eyes opened, they were glowing. "I thought I'd lost you, Isla," whispered. "You almost did," he rasped. She leaned over him. "I healed you." His hand rose, cupped her cheek. "You saved me." And then he pulled her down, lips finding hers with more desperation than she'd ever known from him. The first time they made love, it wasn't soft, it was claiming. Maddox moved like a man who'd nearly died and didn't plan to waste another. Second, Isla met him with fire, fingers gripping his shoulders, lips demanding more. Their bond lit like a fuse, magic pouring from skin to skin, from pulse to pulse. There were no words, only heat, only hunger, only them. Later, as they lay tangled in furs, silence fell. Isla traced the scar across his chest. "You've bled for me." "I'll bleed again," he murmured. "I'm not afraid anymore," she whispered. "Good," Maddox said. He turned to face her, fully, pulling her close. "Because we're not done. Not with war. Not with the council. Not with anyone who—" "Once you gone," she leaned into him. "We'll burn together, then." He kissed her temple. "No," Maddox whispered. "We'll rise." He walked into the war room like he belonged. There Dot, broad dash, shouldered, golden-haired, smiling with a familiarity that set Isla's teeth on edge. Cassian, VORN. Her ex, her first heartbreak, and now warrior for the council. She hadn't seen him in years, not since he left her behind to chase power, choosing politics over love. Isla stood frozen at Maddox's side as Kieran stepped forward, tense. "What the hell is he doing here?" Kieran growled. Cassian's smile didn't waver. "Easy, Beta. I'm not here to fight." "You're a council dog," Torrin spat. "I'm a neutral messenger." Cassian's eyes flicked to Isla, one with a personal history. Maddox stepped forward, a wall of menace in black. "Speak carefully." Cassian's gaze finally settled on the Alpha. "The council wants peace before blood spills into every border. They propose a summit in the Hollowlands. 1 Alpha, 1 Luna. 1 week's truce." Maddox didn't blink. "If they wanted peace, they wouldn't have poisoned me." Cassian's smirk flickered. "Wasn't council sanctioned." Maddox turned to Isla. "Do you know this man?" Her mouth was dry. "Yes." "Do you trust him?" "No." Cassian's expression tightened. "You used to." Isla looked him dead in the eye. "I used to believe in a lot of lies." Maddox stepped in front of her. "If you touch her, breathe wrong near her, or look at her like that again, I'll tear your lungs out and hang them over the keep gates." Cassian chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Understood." The fight started with a look. Maddox had dismissed Cassian with a promise of consideration, but his silence afterwards spoke volumes. He paced the chamber like a wolf, caged too long. Isla watched him, waited, then finally said, "You're angry." He stopped. "He knew you intimately. He was my past. He had no right to look at you like that." Isla folded her arms. "You think I invited it?" Maddox turned. "I think you still carry something for him." She stared. "Do you really believe that?" "I believe he knows how to manipulate you. And you think I'm weak enough to fall for it again? You don't understand how dangerous he is." Isla's voice rose. "No, you don't understand because you never ask. You command. You decide what's safe, what's right, what I get to know. You control everything, Maddox." He strode forward. Because control keeps you alive. Sometimes it cages. Me. Silence cracked between them. Then Maddox's voice dropped, raw. I watched you nearly die in my arms, Isla. I'll never forget that. So if I'm cold, if I'm harsh, it's because I can't watch it happen again. Her fury faded. I don't want a mate who wraps me in chains to keep me safe, she whispered. I want one who trusts me to stand beside him. He looked away. I don't know how. Then you'll have to learn. A child's scream. Cut through the night, the keep went on alert. Wolves poured from the barracks. Maddox barked orders as Kieran reported. Leonarda, Baker's daughter. 4 years old, gone. Vanished from inside the west gate. Maddox's face hardened. Rogues, Torin nodded grimly. A distraction pulled the guards away. They knew what they were doing. They won't keep her alive long, Kieran warned. Isla was already strapping on her daggers. Then we move now. No, Maddox said immediately. You stay here. I'm the only one small enough to fit in the tunnels they took her through, she said. It's a trap. Then, let me spring it. His eyes locked with hers. A long pause. Then, finally, he growled, Take Jessa. You don't go in blind. The rescue was fast, brutal. Isla and Jessa followed the blood trail through the frost tunnels into the forest ruins. 3 rogues, 1 stolen pup. Isla killed the first without hesitation. Jessa ripped the second in half. The third tried to use the child as a shield. Isla didn't blink. She threw her blade, burying it in his throat. Liana cried, trembling but alive. Isla picked her up, heart pounding. When she returned to the keep, bloodied and wild-eyed, Maddox met her at the gate. He didn't speak. He just pulled her into his arms and didn't let go for a long time. The keep was quieter that night. Liana slept safe in her mother's arms. The fires burned lower, and Isla stood on the terrace, looking out at the dark woods. Beyond the wall, Maddox joined her, silent. She didn't turn to him, but said softly, You didn't thank me. I don't thank weapons. She looked at him sharply. I meant, he corrected, that I didn't see you clearly before. I marked you, protected you, owned you, maybe, but I never truly saw you. Now she turned to him. What do you see? Now, a Luna, he said. Not because I named you, because you became her. Their silence stretched. I used to think power was taken, Maddox murmured. But you've taught me it can be earned, shared. Isla touched his hand. I'm not just yours, Maddox. I'm me, and I need to be that, or I can't be yours at all. He nodded, slowly. Then I'll never cage you again. Their fingers intertwined. Do you still want the summit? She asked. He looked at her. Only if you sit at my side. The library beneath the keep hadn't been entered in decades. It was Kieran who discovered it sealed behind stone. Only accessible after the last trial unlocked an ancient rune door. They descended together, Maddox, Isla, and Kieran into the dust-choked archives, scrolls, bone-inked tomes. Forgotten records. Isla found it first. A sealed scroll marked in the old tongue. Kieran translated slowly. It's a prophecy. Maddox raised a brow. Go on. The Luna of the Forbidden. Alpha, Kieran, read, will either unite the divided bloodlines or bring ruin to them all. Her bond will shake the old world. Her heart will choose which future comes. Silence. Isla swallowed. Forbidden Alpha. Maddox looked grim. That's me. You broke pack law, Kieran said. Claimed her. Against council rule. Fated or not, tit was forbidden. So this prophecy is about us, Isla whispered. Maddox stared at the scroll. They'll kill to stop it. Or try, Isla said. Maddox met her gaze, something unspoken passing between them. Then he turned to Kieran. Sealed this chamber. No one sees it, not until I decide. Isla looked back at the words. A new fate had chosen her long before Maddox ever had. The outlaw packs lived in the shadows, beyond the frost line, past council control, disconnected from traditions, laws, and alliances. Their alphas answered to no one. Maddox needed them. He rode through the snow on horseback, flanked by Kieran and Torin. The journey took 3 days. No scouts, no servants, just the 3 of them, traveling rough and fast. They reached the Ravenspire caves by moonlight. Smoke rose from a dozen scattered fires. They won't bow to you, Kieran warned. They barely bow to their own. I don't want them to bow, Maddox said. I want them to choose. They were met by Alpha Thorn of the Dustfangser. Brute with a twisted smile and a missing eye. Didn't think the great Maddox Steele begged, Thorn said, leaning on his axe. I don't beg, Maddox replied. I offer a future. Thorn snorted. You sound like the council. I sound like a wolf who knows war is coming. When it does, your cubs won't care who ruled what land. They'll care who stood with them in the fire. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Other outlaw alphas emerged, female, male, pack, all dangerous. Maddox looked at them. You don't owe me loyalty, but if you join the council, they'll chain you. If you stay out of it, they'll erase you. But if you stand with me, you live free. You fight free. Thorn eyed him. And what does your Luna say? She was council-born, Maddox said, and she chose me. After a long pause, Thorn extended a calloused hand. Then maybe we'll choose you too. Isla stood before more wolves than she had ever seen gathered in one place. The summit, courtyard neutral territory, was packed with pack leaders, scouts, soldiers, and council spies pretending to be diplomats. Blackamoor guards flanked her. Maddox stood behind her, arms crossed. She was expected to be ornamental. She spoke instead. I know some of you still don't believe I belong at his side, she began, her voice steady despite the wind. But you've heard the stories. Maybe you believe I'm a distraction, a bond that weakened an alpha feared by all. You're wrong. Silence. She stepped forward. You think love weakens a leader. But let me ask, when was the last time fear made you feel safe? Her eyes swept the crowd. I didn't choose Maddox because he was powerful. I chose him because he saw me when no one else did. And he didn't cage me, he armed me, trained me, trusted me. A low murmur spread. Even the stoic Alpha Rain of the Ashen Fangs leaned forward. I am not his shadow. I am his equal. And if war is coming, I'll bleed beside him, not behind him. Maddox's eyes never left her. Kieran, beside him, muttered, She just won the room. She was born to, Maddox replied. They came for Kieran under moonlight. 2 Blackamoor guards. Loyal once, doubting now. He was dragged into the keeps. Lower cell by Torin and thrown against the wall. What the hell is this? Isla demanded as she rushed in. He's being tested, Maddox said coldly from the shadows. Kieran's lip bled, his eyes burned. Tested for what? You were once offered a council position, Maddox said. They wanted you to spy. I refused. And yet, you're the only one who knew we were heading to Ravenspire. The council sent an assassin 2 hours after we arrived. You think I sold you out? Kieran barked. I think someone did, Maddox said. And only 3 people knew. Interrogate Turing. Then Kieran snapped. I did. Silence. Isla stepped forward. He's your brother. Maddox didn't flinch. So were the ones I killed during the coup. Kieran stood, hands trembling. You want proof? Take my blood. Use the bondstone. No magic, Maddox said. Only truth. Kieran grabbed a blade and sliced his own palm. Ask your question. Did you betray us? Maddox asked. Kieran's blood sizzled on the stone. No, it pulsed. Glowing green. Maddox closed his eyes. Then he sheathed his blade. I had to be sure. Kieran didn't respond. He just walked out. Isla found the truth in the scroll vault. The prophecy chamber she and Maddox had sealed weeks ago contained more than a single scroll. Buried behind one cracked slab was a second document holder, smudged and half-dash burned. It told of hybrids, wolves born of ancient blood and something else. Not witches, not shifters, something deeper. Wielding magic and strength both, called the Hidden Dot, and the council was hunting them. The names were redacted, but there were initials. Symbols. .1 matched hers. Isla staggered back, breath caught in her throat. Maddox entered a moment later. What did you find? She handed him the scroll. They're not just coming for us. They're coming for me. His eyes scanned the parchment dot. Then he looked at her. You're one of them, she nodded. So was my mother. That's what. The talisman was. It wasn't just protection, it was a suppression seal. She hid me. Maddox stepped closer. Why would the council want them dead? Because hybrids break the bloodline, Order. Isla whispered. They can't be controlled. They bond outside rank. They threaten the hierarchy. And now you're there, Luna. And you're the alpha who chose her anyway. He closed the scroll. Then we make sure they don't survive us. The keep's great hall had never been so full. Word had spread. Maddox Steele was holding a public union ceremony for Isla Dawson. No council approval. No council presence. Just wolves, allies, rebels, and a throne room filled with flame. Isla walked between 2 lines of warriors, dressed in crimson and gold, cloak billowing like fire. At the dais, Maddox waited black ceremonial armor, his sword laid at his feet in submission. She met him at the top. The priestess began the binding rites, but Maddox raised a hand. No words, he said. Not tonight. He turned to Isla. I'm not a man made for vows, but if I could give you a kingdom for every scar you've earned in my name, I would. Isla stepped forward, hands shaking as she touched his chest. You gave me something better, a place to burn, a place to rise. He cut his palm. She did the same. They pressed their hands together. A flare of magic surged through the radiant. Primal. Final dot. Every wolf dropped to one knee. Every banner unfurled. Every doubt silenced. And when Maddox leaned forward and kissed her, there was no crown, no court, no council left in that hall. Only a Luna Dot and her alpha. They arrived unannounced. 12 riders in crimson and silver. At their front, Alpha Rygar Vane of the Dreadmore Highlands, a warlord, younger than Maddox by a few years, but cocky enough to wear no armor. I come under the right of challenge, Rygar announced in the keep's great courtyard, voice ringing. Off stone, Maddox descended the steps in silence. His expression didn't flicker. You think you can take this title from me? Rygar smirked. You've broken council law, bonded a hybrid, declared war. The alpha seat doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to a real wolf. Torin bared his teeth. You won't leave alive. But Maddox lifted a hand. No. Let him speak. Rhaegar stepped forward, voice rising. You act like a king, but you rule by fear. You burn banners. You invite traitors. You kiss witches. Isla, standing near the archway, didn't flinch. Maddox's voice dropped. Say that again. You mated a curse. You led this pack into ruin. Maddox's hand went to the blade at his hip. You've made your challenge. I accept. No ceremony, no delay. The circle cleared. Rhaegar shifted fast, all muscle and fury. But Maddox didn't shift. He fought in human form ice like frost, movements cold and lethal. He dodged the first lunge, cracked Rhaegar's ribs with a knee, drove an elbow into the back of his neck. When Rhaegar shifted back, gasping, Maddox rammed him to the ground. His blade pressed to the challenger's throat. You ever speak her name again, Maddox hissed, and I won't stop at your throat. I'll find your mate, your bloodline, your Lansand, burn them from memory. Rhaegar didn't rise, he didn't breathe, he submitted, and Maddox stood tall in the center of the ring. It happened fast, a dart from the crowd, silent, coated in wolfsbane, aimed. For Isla. She didn't see it, but Maddox did. His body moved instinctively. The dart sank into his shoulder instead. The guards rushed forward. Too late, Maddox staggered, but didn't fall. Instead, he shifted mid-motion, tearing through skin and cloth in an explosion of black fur and bone. His wolf form was monstrous. Twice the size of the average alpha, eyes burning, teeth bared. He launched into the crowd. Cassian, who had been standing on the outer ring, tackled the would-be assassin, old member of the council's former bloodline, now rogue, but Maddox didn't stop. He tore through two bystanders, snarling and savage. Torin and Kieran had to flank him, circling, trying to call him down. Maddox Salfastan, down. Kieran shouted. Isla stepped into the path. His wolf froze. Her voice was barely a whisper. Come back to me, he snarled, teeth dripping. Blood, I'm safe, she said, holding out her hand. His breathing slowed. Shoulders quaked, and finally, the beast stepped back. He shifted slowly, painfully collapsing to his knees. Isla ran to him. He buried his face against her stomach, shaking. I almost lost you, he whispered. She stroked his hair. You didn't, but I would have killed them all. You still might, she said softly, if they don't stop. The full moon rose crimson. The old wolves said it was a bad omen. Isla felt it in her veins, fire licking under her skin, something pulsing behind her ribs. Magic and instinct surged like a tide inside her. The seal her mother left behind had broken weeks ago. Now it burned. She stood in the ritual pool beneath the keep, barefoot, eyes closed. Kieran watched warily from the edge. You sure about this? No, she said. But it's not about me anymore. The moon hit its peak, and Isla glowed, not figuratively. Her skin shimmered like starlight. Runes that hadn't been carved flickered across her arms. The water around her boiled, and then her eyes opened, white, not, blind and leashed. Power erupted from her body in a wave that cracked stone, split tile, and sent wolves staggering. Torin shielded the guards. Kieran dove to cover the altar. Maddox burst through the chamber doors as the glow reached its brightest. He saw her floating now, barely tethered to the floor, voice layered with something ancient as she whispered in the old tongue. He didn't run. He walked straight into the wave of force blood leaking from his lip and wrapped his arms around her. "Come back," he whispered. "Too much," she gasped. "You are not too much for me," he said, grounding her. "You are mine, and I'll hold every piece of you, even the ones the world fears." Slowly, the light dimmed. She collapsed against him, but her power remained. Awake, they didn't wait. 3 council elders arrived within 24 hours of the Moonborn display. This time, no messengers. They came in person. With guards. With blades. Elder Malaran led the charge. Maddox met them in the war hall, flanked by Isla and Kieran. Torin stood by the door with 10 Blackamoor elites. Malaran didn't sit. "You have defied every decree, bonded a hybrid, defended a feral shift, awakened forbidden power." Maddox leaned back in his chair. "You forgot killed a traitor, Alpha 2. Malaran's eyes snapped to Isla. "She is a danger. Not just to you, to all of us. Her bloodline is a breach of sacred law. She should never have survived the womb." Isla didn't blink, and yet, here I am. The elder's voice grew cold. "Exile or death. Choose by dawn." Maddox rose to his full height. "We've already chosen." Torin stepped forward, hand on sword. "And we don't wait for dawn." Malaran narrowed his eyes. "Then war it is." Maddox didn't flinch. It always was. They struck that night. Not the council, someone inside. A blade was found on Maddox's pillow, poisoned, coated in venom from the old swamps. Only one had access to that kind of toxin. Jessa, his trusted second, the one who trained Isla with blades, the one who fought beside Torin, the one who had survived 3 coups under Maddox's reign. He summoned her privately. She didn't deny it. "You gave me loyalty," she said, "but you forgot what happens when loyalty turns into silence. Stood with you when you took this throne, and then you gave it all away to her." "You were my soldier," Maddox said, eyes dark. "I was your weapon, until you found a prettier one." Maddox didn't raise his voice, didn't snarl. He just said, "Torin." Torin stepped from the shadows and drove a blade through her. Back, quick, brutal, clean, jess, crumpled to the floor. Maddox stared down at her, expression blank. Then he turned to Torin. "No one else leaves my side unchecked. Not again." Isla left. Before dawn, no note, no scent trail, just silence. She kissed Maddox's brow while he slept and whispered, "Forgive me." Then she vanished. By the time Kieran discovered her absence, she was already beyond the wards, running through the mountain passes in a cloak woven with masking charms, the same kind her mother once used. Torin threw a table when he heard. Kieran stood frozen. Why would she do this? Maddox said nothing, just stared at the empty space where her scent used to be. Then he turned slowly. "She thinks she's protecting me." Torin paced. "From what?" "From what I'll become when they try to take her again." Maddox moved toward the map wall, fingers curling into fists. "She thinks if she disappears, I won't burn the world to keep her safe, will you?" Kieran asked, quiet. Maddox's eyes were dead cold. "I already started." He didn't eat. He didn't sleep. He didn't speak unless it was a command. Maddox tracked her like a predator through blood wards, old trails, whispers from outlaw packs. He questioned every rogue, beat information out of mercenaries, tore through to council outposts with nothing but blade and fury. Kieran tried to talk him down. "She left because she loves you," he said one night. "Not because she doubts it. Maddox growled. She's wrong. If she thinks leaving keeps her safe, she doesn't know what I'd become without her. Maybe that's what she's afraid of, Kieran said. Maddox didn't reply. He reached the ruins of an old hybrid sanctuary on the third night, destroyed long ago by council forces. There, finally, he caught her scent, faint, fleeting dot, but hers. He shifted mid-step and ran. His paws tore through mud and snow and root. His heart howled. She was close, and when he found the clearing, half-frozen, moonlit, she was there, alone, shivering, wrapped in furs. Eyes wide when she saw him. Maddox, she whispered. He didn't stop. He tackled her but didn't hurt her. She landed on her back. Breath punched from her lungs as his weight pinned her down, arms caging her, eyes wild. Maddox, she gasped. He didn't speak, didn't blink. His hands found her face, cupped her cheeks, thumbs trembling. Why? He whispered. Why would you leave me? Tears filled her eyes. Because you were changing. Because I was changing. Because I was afraid they'd turned you into something you're not. They already did, he said hoarsely. When they marked you for death. When they tried to take you from me. I've always been this. You just make me want to survive. It. I didn't want to be the reason you became a monster. His hands dropped. You're the only reason I don't, he said. She blinked, tears falling. I couldn't lose you again, he choked. I won't. She reached up slowly, fingers brushing his scarred jaw. Then take me home. I am home, he growled, lowering his mouth to hers. The kiss was rough, desperate, bruising, but beneath it, grief, longing, love. The snow fell gently around them as they collapsed together into the furs, tangled and breathless, pressed against the earth like the last two wolves alive. They didn't speak for hours, just stayed wrapped together, bodies warm against the bitter cold. When Isla woke, Maddox was already watching her eyes, soft arms still around her. I meant to come back, she said quietly. After the council fell. I don't care about the council, Maddox said. You do, she whispered, but you'd throw it all away for me. He didn't deny it. She touched his chest. You still want me. After everything I've broken, he caught her hand and placed it over his heart. Everything I am belongs to you. Her voice cracked. Then claim it. Their second time wasn't like the first. No fury, no hunger, just hands, breath, quiet promises and trembling. Mouths. When she offered her neck, Maddox hesitated. You're sure? He asked, voice shaking. Yes. He bit Dot, soft, deep, final. Her own teeth met his skin a moment later, and the bond flared fully awake, no longer half-formed, no longer muted. It sang in their blood, and when he pulled her closer afterward, heart still racing, she knew this was no longer a love that could be broken. It was war-forged, and eternal, she knew within days. Her body changed subtly, her scent, her cravings, the way her magic hummed lower in her belly. She didn't tell him, not yet. They returned to Blackamoor under heavy guard, the gates opening at dawn as wolves flooded the courtyard, howling in relief. Maddox barely let go of her hand. Kieran pulled her into a tight hug. Torin grunted and shoved her shoulder. Don't do that again, he muttered. I like my alpha, not homicidal. Isla smiled, but her heart thudded deep in her chest. That night, she stood on the balcony alone, hand brushing her stomach. A child, his Dot. A secret she kept, not out of fear, but out of love, because she wanted to protect this last piece of peace between. Then, before the world demanded more, behind her, Maddox stepped close, arms sliding round her waist. "Whatever it is," he murmured against her hair, "we'll face it together." She leaned back into him and whispered, "I know." The council lied about their power, about their laws, about the fate of lunars who broke tradition. Isla found the truth in the temple vault, an abandoned archive Kieran had once mentioned during a border patrol. Inside, it smelled of dust and secrets. She used her blood to unlock the last Doran old hybrid trick. Her mother once told her, what she found chilled her. Dozens of files, charts, medical logs, names, all LUNAS, all pregnant, all dead, experiments, trials. Subject failed due to magical instability. Subject terminated. Bloodline collapse, immediate incineration. One file bore the mark of House Dawson. Her mother's line. Subject carried dual bloodlines. Too unstable. Protocol. Eliminate both mother and child. Isla staggered back, bile rising. They hadn't just hunted her. They had hunted her before she was even born. Behind her, the door creaked open. Maddox stepped inside, arms folded. "You shouldn't be here." Isla looked up. "They tried to erase me." His eyes swept over the open pages. "Then we'll erase them instead." She moved into his arms. "They won't stop," she whispered. "They don't get the choice," Maddox said. "Not anymore." Kieran wasn't trying to find out, but he noticed it. The scent shift. Isla's sudden, quiet moments. The way her hand hovered near her belly in thought. He confronted her in the garden behind the keep, where the mist clung low to the hedges. "You're pregnant," he said softly. Isla didn't respond right away. Then, "Please, don't tell him." Kieran stared. "You think I want to be the one to deliver that bombshell?" She smiled weakly. He sat beside her on the stone bench. "Why wait? I need time to plan, to understand what this means. For you or for him. For all of us," she whispered. Kieran nodded, quiet. "You'll be a good mother." Her eyes filled. "You think so? I think you're already willing to fight for them. That's more than most ever get." He stood slowly. "But you won't be able to hide it forever. You're already glowing like a moonstone." She looked up at the sky. "Just a little longer." "I'll keep your secret," Kieran said. For now, the forest was too quiet. Maddox didn't like quiet, not during patrol. Not near the southern border, so close to enemy-held lands. He and Torin flanked the path in silence. Kieran and Isla were 2 ridges behind, coordinating with scouts. Then the trees exploded. A fire rune crude, but deadly erupted under Maddox's feet. He was thrown back into a jagged root, blood rushing from his side. Before he could shift, arrows rained from the trees. One lodged in his shoulder, the other in his thigh. Council assassins dropped from the tree's mast. Fast, silent, Torin shouted, fending 2 off at once. "Alpha." Maddox bared his teeth, pulling the arrow free. He swung his blade into the neck of the nearest one, caught another, with a broken branch through the ribs. But the poison was spreading. His vision blurred. He dropped to one knee, and then Isla appeared, a storm of wind and rage. She hurled magic like knives. Light shattered the air. Her scream echoed through the woods as she drove her blade through the final assassin's chest. When she reached Maddox, he was barely conscious. "You idiot," she whispered, holding him. "You can't die. I won't let you." His hand gripped hers, weak. "You came. I'll always come," she choked. You're mine. It happened in daylight. Peace had settled like ash for 3 days. Then the council struck not with warriors, but with a knife in the dark. Elias, the old librarian, the man who raised Isla after her mother's death, who taught her the names of the stars and how to read between the lines of prophecy, they found him strung up outside the keep wall, his body marked with council. Sigils. No note, just the message, one down. The Luna's next Isla collapsed to her knees at the sight. Maddox stood over the corpse in silence, rage radiating from every inch of him. Kieran covered Isla with his coat. Torin looked away. Maddox didn't move for a full hour. Then he turned. To Isla, from this moment forward, he said, we don't wait for war to come. Isla's voice shook. They knew he mattered to me. They wanted to send a message. She looked up, eyes red. Then let's send one back. The war. Council gathered in the high tower, Torin. Kieran, Maddox. 30 warriors. Jess's empty seat replaced by Isla's. She didn't wait for permission. She stood. I won't ask for votes. I won't pretend we have a choice. All eyes on her. They have taken enough. They hunted me before I breathed. Branded my kind. Abominations. Murdered innocents and dared hang their bodies like warnings. She held up Ilias's blood-stained journal. This is their law. Then she set it on fire. The room went dead quiet. She spoke through the flames. And this is our answer. Maddox's voice came low and fierce beside her. We march. At dawn. Kieran rose without a word. Torin placed his blade on the table. One by one, every wolf followed. They howled together, that night not for grief, but for war, and in the darkness. Isla pressed a hand to her stomach and whispered to the life within her, I will make you a world worth being born into. They said Alpha Maddox Steele once tore a traitor's spine out with his bare hands. That was a mercy compared to what he did now. 3. Council-aligned Alphas had remained neutral in the war. Neutrality was treason. Maddox tracked them one by one. The first, Alpha Reynold, he found in a pleasure den just outside Einridge. Maddox didn't speak. He slit the guards' throats, walked into the lounge, and dropped Reynald's head on the velvet floorboards an hour later. The second, Alpha Kale, begged. Please, he gasped. Hands up as Maddox stalked through the storm toward him. I didn't send warriors. I didn't vote for Isla's execution. You didn't stop it either, Maddox replied. I have a mate. Cubs, please. Maddox's eyes were flat as ice. So did the Lunas you watched burn. The blade fell. The third, Alpha Harrow, wasn't found. He ran, but Maddox left a message scorched into his estate gates. There is no throne left for cowards. When he returned to Blackamoor, his jaw was bloodied and his voice ragged. He didn't go to the war room. He went to Isla, collapsed to his knees in front of her. She didn't say anything, just took his face in her hands and kissed the monster he'd become. They met at Hollow Fang Rock, an unaligned territory claimed by rogues. Isla went alone. Torin and Kieran nearly had heart attacks. You cannot go without backup, Kieran barked. They're not council, but they're worse. Isla straightened her cloak. They hate the council. That makes us allies for now. Maddox didn't say a word, just watched her walk out the gates with his jaw clenched tight enough to crack. The rogues arrived in layers, scarred warriors, lean witches, lone shifters, marked with exile brands. Their leader was a woman named Nick's tattooed face, twin blades strapped to her spine. You smell like royalty, Nyx said. I'm mated to a king, Isla replied, but I'm not here to rule you. Nyx grinned. Then why are you here? Because we have the same enemy, and I have something they fear more than any army. Nyx raised a brow. What's that, my blood? She rolled out the scrolls, maps, records of the council's crimes. I'm not asking you to kneel, Isla said. I'm asking you to fight for a world where no one kneels again. The rogues were silent. Then Nyx smiled, and here I thought the Luna would be soft. The temple was buried beneath ice. Only Maddox, Isla, and Kieran entered. Old stone, carved runes, whispers clinging to the walls like ghosts. At the altar stood an old priestess blind, ancient and smelling of cedar. You carry the moon's air, she said to Isla. Without hesitation, Isla stilled. You know, I saw it in flame long before you were born. What does it mean? The priestess touched Isla's stomach gently. This child will do what no alpha ever could, end the bloodlines, and start something new. Maddox stepped forward. You mean destroy the council? The woman turned her clouded eyes to him. No, I mean destroy the need for them. Kieran blinked. Is that even possible? With sacrifice? The priestess said. Whose? Isla asked, but the woman just smiled and vanished into dust. The Rogue Alliance arrived. 2 nights later, Isla was leading a supply coordination when the alarm rang. But it wasn't for an attack, it was for her. She vanished in seconds, no struggle. No sound, just the faint scent of sedative herbs and silver. Ash Torin found the empty cloak. First Kieran found the crushed runestone beside it. Maddox found the broken guard who had let them through a council. Spy with a shattered jaw and a snapped spine by the time Maddox was done with him. Find her. He growled. Cassian rode out with 10 scouts. The trail was faint, but it led to the bastion, the council's high compound, fortress, prison, graveyard. Maddox stood in the war hall, every commander watching him. He didn't speak or rallying. Speech just drew his blade. She screamed for me once, he said. They will never hear her scream again. The bastion was built to survive the end of the world. It didn't survive Maddox Steele. He didn't wait for backup. He didn't wait for plans. He broke the gates himself. Torin was on his left, Kieran on his right. Nyx and the rogues took the upper wall. Cassian's team cut down the rear guard. But Maddoxy was fire. He cleaved through enchanted doors, tore through council elites, burned the armory, toppled towers. When he reached the prison wing, he found Isla chained, her hands bruised, lips cracked but her spine unbroken. You came, she whispered. He crushed the locks and pulled her into his arms. I told you, he breathed. I'll burn the world. Flames rose behind him. They didn't stop until the entire bastion collapsed in fire and ash. And when they emerged from the ruins, Isla in Maddox's arms, blood on his face. Flame behind them, the world knew the age of the council was over, and the Luna's child would be born in freedom or not at all. Smoke clung to the air like a ghost. Isla stumbled through the edge of the battlefield, her cloak torn, wrists raw from the iron cuffs that had held her. Behind her, the bastion burned, and somewhere inside that inferno, Maddox was still tearing. Through the last of the council guards, she had escaped during the chaos, but she was wounded. A blade had caught her side as she ran, shallow but bleeding. Every breath burned. She didn't know which direction was north, only that she had to keep moving, away from the fire, away from the screams. Through dense underbrush, she staggered, her legs trembled. Her wolf whimpered. Under the surface, she reached a thicket by the edge of a stream and collapsed, curling in on herself. Her hand went to her stomach. Still safe, still there. Just hold on, she whispered to the life inside her. He'll come, he always comes. And far away so faint she almost didn't hear Eater Wolf howled. Maddox was on his feet before the last council guard fell. Where is she? He growled. Cassian came running. She broke out, escaped the prison wing before you arrived. She ran toward the eastern cliff. Blood trail ends at the ridge. Find her, Maddox snarled. Now, Torin gripped his shoulder. You're bleeding. So is she. The world narrowed into scent and memory. Maddox shifted mid-motion, his massive black wolf crashing into the forest like a demon from the old war songs. He followed. The trail faint, fading but unmistakably hers. Burned herbs, iron and blood. She was injured. He pushed harder. Branches snapped beneath his paws. Cold wind tore at his fur. The moon rose red dot at the river bend. He found her cloak tangled in the thorns. Still warm, he shifted back and snarled, eyes wild. Isla, a voice whispered from the brush. Maddox. He turned. She was crawling out from behind a tree, pale, blood-streaked, but alive. He crossed the distance in 2 strides, dropping to his knees. I've got you, he breathed, lifting her into his arms. You found me again, she whispered. I'll always find you. They returned to Blackamoor under cover of night, but not all was calm. Torin met them at the gates, face grim. We have a problem. What now? Maddox asked. Still carrying Isla Rogan, Torin said. He's stirring rebellion, says. You've brought ruin, that you've weakened the pack chasing your mate across the continent. Maddox's jaw clenched. He wants the title. He wants blood. Rogan had been one of Maddox's generals. Respected, brutal, loyal until he wasn't. Isla pulled herself upright. Don't go alone. I don't need an army, Maddox said. But when he entered the war hall, the pack was already gathered. Rogan. At the center, you left us to die, Rogan shouted. To chase your hybrid Luna while council blades struck our border. You're not our alpha anymore. Maddox stepped into the circle, and silence followed. You think you could wear this crown, Maddox said. You think you could protect what I've bled for. I could lead better than a man ruled by a witch, Rogan spat. Maddox didn't raise his voice. He just moved, blur of teeth and blade. The fight lasted 8 seconds. Rogan's body hit the floor, throat torn open. Maddox stood over him, blood dripping down his arm. Anyone else? No one spoke. They were surrounded. It happened on the northern Ridjan ambush. Council loyalists hidden in the rock passes, blades laced with wolfsbane. Archers positioned on both flanks. Kieran was the one who saw the trap. He turned to Isla, his face pale. You need to run. No, now. He shoved her down the ravine just as the first volley of arrows hit. Torin tried to reach him. Maddox howled his name, but Kieran didn't flinch. He turned to face the enemy, both blades drawn, and held the line, even as they closed in, even as the arrows pierced his side. He didn't fall. He fought until every soldier was dead, or fleeing when Maddox finally reached him. Kieran was on his knees, breathing ragged. I bought her time, he whispered. You bought us everything. Maddox said, lowering beside him. Kieran grinned weakly. Don't screw it up. And then he slumped forward. Gone. There was no command, no signal, no war horn, just rage. Pure and feral. Maddox shifted mid-scream, his beast form exploding out of him, twice the size it had ever been, black as death, fangs longer than daggers, eyes glowing with unholy fire. He tore through the army like vengeance incarnate. Not a wolf, not a man, a reckoning. Isla watched from the ridge, tears streaming down her face. Torrin stood beside her, sword still bloodied, voice low. He's not fighting for land, or pride, or power. Then what? Isla whispered. Torrin looked at her. You. By the time Maddox was done, there were no survivors. He shifted back, body drenched in blood, chest heaving. He collapsed to his knees and screamed into the sky. Isla ran to him, held him in the ruins of the field. You're still mine, she whispered, rocking him. And you're still everything, he said through clenched teeth. Behind them, the valley burned, but their bond held. Even now, even here, Maddox didn't fall often, but when he did, he fell hard. It happened in the aftermath of the northern ambush, just days after Kieran's death. A scout returned with news of movement from an unknown faction. Maddox led the charge, with Torrin, Cassian, and Nyx flanking him. The first rune trap exploded beneath his feet. He didn't flinch until the second one hit. It wasn't fire or ice, it was blood magic. Wolfsbane laced with iron dust, tethered to a death sigil. His body seized mid-step. His wolf bucked violently beneath his skin. He dropped, clutching his chest, eyes rolling back. Maddox. Torrin caught him before his head hit stone. Cassian tore through the tree line in rage, but the attackers were gone ghosts in the wind. Isla arrived moments later, breath hitching, as she saw his limp form. No, she whispered. No, no, no. She dropped to her knees beside him. His skin was grey, his pulse beneath his mouth, bleeding from the inside. Get him back to Blackamoor, Isla ordered. Now. No one questioned her. The strongest alpha in North America had fallen, and the world shifted in its silence. He didn't wake for 3 days. By the second, wolves began to murmur. By the third, packs whispered at the border. Isla stood on the balcony of the keep with Torrin at her side, wind tugging at her cloak. Cassian turned to her. They'll challenge your claim. Let them. She walked into the war hall like a queen without a crown. Every warrior present, including alphas of allied packs, stoned as she entered. The alpha is down, Isla said. But Black stands, and until Maddox returns, I rule. Nyx raised a brow. That's not how wolf law works. I am wolf law now, Isla snapped, voice sharp as steel. My mate bled for this territory, died for some of you. If you think I'll let what we built fall apart while he recovers, come at me. No one moved, even Torrin stared. I thought you hated politics, he muttered. I still do, Isla said. But I hate weakness more. That night, the pack swore temporary loyalty not just to Maddox's name, but to Isla's the dreams. Began the same night she claimed command. Vivid, strange, she stood in fire, in snow, in blood. A voice echoed through her bones, soft and high, like a child's, but layered with something ancient. Soon, it whispered, soon I'll come. She woke gasping. Her hands flew to her stomach. Still warm, alive, but different. Torrin noticed the flickering lights when she entered the library. Candles flared when she walked past. Glass cracked when she grew agitated. You're carrying more than a child, he said. I know. She touched a window and frost webbed across the pane instantly. Her power was changing, or rather dush. magnifying dot, amplified by what was growing inside her. Nyx saw it too. "You're glowing," she muttered. "Not metaphorically, literally." Isla looked at her trembling fingers. "What are you?" Nyx whispered. Isla closed her eyes. "What we were always meant to be." He woke to silence. No fire, no war, just the smell of her. Maddox opened his eyes to dim candlelight and the soft sound of water dripping somewhere beyond the stone walls. He tried to sit. Pain lanced through his chest. Isla was at his side in an instant. "Don't move," he blinked, dazed. "How long?" 3 days. His hand found hers. "You're safe, yes, and the pack, mine." He stared at her. She didn't flinch. "I stood in your place," she said softly. "I led them. I threatened them. I made them kneel." Maddox's lips curved faintly. "You sound like me. You sound proud." "I am." He gripped her wrist suddenly, pulling her close. "You should have let me die," he said. "You don't need a broken alpha." She pressed her forehead to his. "You're not broken," she whispered. "You're mine." And in the quiet, their bond pulsed strong, brighter than it ever had. Cassian returned with grim news. "There's movement east of the ice spire," he reported in the war chamber. "A group calling themselves the Crimson Elders." Torin frowned. "I thought we wiped out the last of the council." Cassian nodded. "We did. But these weren't council." "Not exactly. These are their ancestors. The true origin of the bloodline laws. The architects of the lunar executions." Nyx leaned back. "And I suppose they're not thrilled. A hybrid lunar now rules the largest territory in the north." Cassian eyes met Maddox's. "They've called her a mistake. A corruption. They've sworn to purify what we built." Maddox's voice dropped low. "Let them try." But Isla stood, and for the first time everyone listened to her. "If they want to fight," she said, "then they'll get a war the old gods will weep over." Silence. Then Maddox rose beside her, voice calm and cold. "I burned the council once. I'll bury the past with them." And across the keep, the wolves howled again, but this time not for blood, for rebirth. The Crimson Elders struck at dawn. 300 strong, wolves bred in shadow. Their markings older than the council's, their magic thicker than iron blood. They didn't come for war, they came for Isla. They called her a blasphemy. Maddox stood before the gates of Blackmoor, blade in hand, face bloodless with rage. But Isla stepped beside him. "No," she said. "This one is mine." She walked through the smoke alone. Elder Veric waited, draped in crimson robes, eyes black with age. "You think you can rule," he hissed. "You, born of corruption." "I was born of power," Isla said coldly. "And you came to my lands." The battle was short. He struck with fire and storm. Isla answered with silence and light. When it ended, Elder Varick lay gasping at her feet, bones shattered, heart flickering. She raised her dagger, Kieran's blade, and drove it through his chest. The air pulsed. The remaining elders fell back, and in the quiet aftermath, Isla stood beneath a blood-orange sky, cloak torn, shoulders squared. Maddox met her as she returned. "You killed him." "I had to." He stared at her like she'd grown wings. "You're not just my mate anymore," he said. "No," Isla whispered. "I'm their lunar warrior now." In the Hall of Stone, the leaders gathered. Nyx, Torin, Cassian, and the rogue generals. At the center stood Isla and Maddox. A blade lay on the altar. Beside it, 2 goblets carved from bone and obsidian. Torin spoke first. You don't have to do this. Blood pacts are irreversible. Maddox's voice was ice. That's the point. Cassian folded his arms. It binds you, body, mind, soul. If she dies, I die, Maddox said flatly. Isla took his hand. This wasn't your idea. No, he said. But I wanted. She hesitated, searching his eyes. You're not afraid. I'm afraid of nothing except losing you. Together, they cut their palms and let the blood mix in the bowl. Maddox drank first. Isla followed. Pain shot through their veins. Light shimmered around them. Their bond, already strong, ignited into something ancient. The room trembled. The flame in every torch turned white. Nyx looked away. Well, damn, that's permanent, Cassian muttered. We'll need a bigger war. Table. But Torin just watched. Maddox stood taller, still, like a god carved from rage. She's yours now, he murmured. And you're hers in every way. Maddox didn't answer. He just pulled Isla close and whispered against her skin. We're not dying for anyone but each other. They found it in a ruin carved into the glacier peaks, a temple buried in time and frost. Isla, Maddox, and Torin entered first. The walls were covered in blood script. Cassian read it aloud, eyes wide. The child born of night and fire will fracture fate, but for the new age to rise, one heart must die. Luna or Alpha, mate or mate. A deep silence followed. Isla stepped back. No, Maddox's jaw clenched. So it's one of us. Torin shook his head. We've defied prophecy before, but not one this old, Isla whispered. Cassian turned. If we don't make a choice, the child may be stillborn or cursed. Maddox looked at Isla. You know what we have to do. No, she snapped. Don't say it. He touched her face. It has to be me. Maddox stood before the sacred altar at twilight. Cassian and Torin tried to stop him. Isla arrived breathless, cloak whipping around her, eyes wild. No, she said. You're not doing this. It's the only way, Maddox said, voice eerily calm. You're stronger. You lead them now. I don't care, she shouted. We made a pact. And if I die, you die too. Then don't. He stepped forward. If this child is what they say, then let it be born through sacrifice. She struck him hard. Tears streamed down her face. You think I want to raise our child on the ashes of you? Isla's voice broke. You think they need a symbol? I need you. Maddox, I need you. His voice cracked. If I don't do this, our child might not live. We'll find another way. She screamed, and then her power surged. A pulse of raw energy erupted from her chest, knocking them both backward. The altar cracked, the runes split, and something ancient woke. The sky turned black, thunder cracked across the mountains. The prophecy had been challenged in the chamber of gods. Isla stood before the shattered altar, Maddox beside her, both trembling from the force of their bond. Light and shadow twined around them. A voice boomed, not one they recognized. Not elder, not wolf. You choose to defy the old law. Isla raised her chin. I choose our law. Maddox's hand gripped hers. We are not pawns, the voice snarled. There must be a price. Isla stepped forward. Then take this. She pressed her palm to the stone. I offer our bloodline, not in death, but in change. There was silence. Then the altar dissolved. The flames in the hall calmed, and the storm passed. Cassian dropped to his knees. Did it work? Torin exhaled. I think she just rewrote fate. Maddox looked at Isla, chest heaving. Are you all right? She swayed. He caught her just before she collapsed, and against his chest her lips curved faintly. I think. The baby kicked. The war had stalled, not in surrender, but in silence. A fragile, deadly silence. And Isla knew it wouldn't last unless she did something no alpha before her had ever dared. Unite the fractured packs. She met them in Wolfspire Valley, where no banners flew and no titles held sway. Torrin stood at her side. Nyx flanked the outer perimeter. Cassian kept watch with his hand never far from his sword. 5 rival alphas came. Alpha Selene of the Donclaw, sharp-eyed and cautious. Alpha Vane of Bloodfang, young, arrogant, smart enough to hide it. Alpha Miro of the Bonehowl, gruff, old, loyal to no one. And 2 rogue leaders, Sasha and Rennick, twin sisters who ruled the broken packs from the southern marsh. Selene spoke first. You've got blood on your hands, Luna. I've got peace in mine, Isla replied, for as long as it lasts. Vane scoffed. Why should we follow you? Because the Crimson Elders will kill us all if we don't stand together. Isla said, folding her hands. I'm not asking you to kneel. I'm asking you to survive. Miro grunted. And if we say no? Maddox's voice cut through the clearing as he emerged from the trees. Then I bury you beside them. The wind stilled. Maddox's presence, bloody and brutal, filled the space like a storm cloud. Vienne paled. Selena's lips curled. Well, looks like we have our answer. Back at Blackamoor, Maddox stood before the war map in the main hall, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the enemy markers creeping too close to the east wall. Torrin stepped in. The alliances hold. Isla did it. I know, Maddox said. Now I have to make sure they survive. He tapped the eastern ridge. This is where they'll strike first. Cassian leaned forward. How do you know? Because that's where I would strike, Torrin huffed, comforting. Maddox rolled his shoulders, tension cracking down his spine. I want archers on the cliffs, flame runners on standby. Cassian lead the rear line, Nyx scout the spire. Take no one, you're not willing to kill yourself. Cassian frowned. What about you? Maddox's eyes turned dark. I'll be at the front, you always are. Later that night, Isla found him alone in the training ring, shirt off, scars on full display as he drove a blade into a sand. Dummy, over and over again. She watched in silence. You're preparing for the end, she whispered. Maddox didn't stop. I'm preparing so it won't come. She walked to him slowly. You're not just my alpha, Maddox. He turned to her. You're our child's father, she said. Come back from this war. Promise me. He touched her stomach gently. I'll come back, he murmured, even if I have to crawl through hell to do it. It began with a storm. The sky split open at midnight, lightning streaking across the keep, wolves howling as thunder cracked like bone. Isla woke with a scream. Hands clutched to her belly. Maddox was there in an instant. It's too early. She gasped. Maddox sits too soon. Cassian ran for the healer. Torrin barked orders to clear the hall. Nyx held the door as Maddox lifted Isla into his arms and carried her to the chamber beneath the altar room laced with protective sigils. Blood streaked her thighs. Pain lanced through her spine. Stay with me, Maddox whispered, holding her hand as she writhed. Then came a pulse of energy so strong the walls cracked. A scream not from Isla but from the child, born in a surge of blinding white light, tiny, strong eyes, the color of storm clouds, already glowing with raw magic. The healer gasped. This child, she's not a wolf. Maddox stared at the tiny creature swaddled in cloth. Then what is she? The healer looked up, pale. She's everything. The Crimson Elders responded within hours. A message arrived burned into the chest of a dead courier. Return the child, or all of Blackamoor dies. Maddox tore the body down himself and burned it to ash. Isla stood behind him, pale but standing. They know what she is. Torrin's jaw tightened. They'll never stop coming. Cassian nodded grimly. They want the child for their own rituals, to erase what she represents. Maddox didn't speak. He just entered the keep, picked up his daughter, still unnamed, and held her against his chest. She's mine, he said. You'll need to hide her, Nick said. No, Isla said suddenly. Everyone turned. She was born of flame. She won't survive in the dark. They argued for hours about escape routes, wardings, assassins, war. But when the smoke cleared, Maddox stood beside Isla, their daughter, in his arms, and said simply, "Let them come." The attack came at sunset. Wards shattered. Arrows rained from the sky. Wolves screamed as smoke choked the valley. Isla stood at the top of the keep, cloak whipping in the wind, her child swaddled in her arms. "Go," she shouted at Torrin. "Get the child to the altar chamber." He obeyed, but not before Maddox appeared beside her. "I'll hold the stairs," he growled. "No," Isla said. "I will." She turned toward the enemy lines, hundreds of crimson elders charging like demons from the edge of the trees. And then she invoked it. Ancient lunar magic, the kind spoken of in whispers and dreams, the kind that made the moon weep. Her eyes glowed, her hair lifted in the wind. The earth shook. Vines burst from the stone walls. Wolves rose from the shadows. The sky burned white, and when she screamed, the elders stumbled, their power ripping from their bones as their blood boiled in their veins. Torrin shielded the child. Cassian dragged fallen guards to safety. Maddox watched Isla turn into something untouchable, terrifying in her fury, divine in her wrath. When it was over, the battlefield was silent. Not one enemy remained. Isla sank to her knees, and Maddox ran to her, catching her just before she fell. "You saved her," he whispered. "I saved us," she murmured, and for the first time in a century, the moon was silent, because it knew the true Luna had risen. The keep of Blackamoor stood, blood-soaked but unbroken. Smoke still curled from the east wall. Wolves buried their dead at dawn. And though victory had been claimed, it felt more like survival than triumph. Until Maddox rode through the northern gate, he was dressed in black war leathers, cloak torn from the last fight. Blood still crusted his jaw. His eyes deadly calm. The wolves waiting outside fell silent. Then they bowed. Torrin stepped forward, sword drawn, and pressed the blade to his own chest. "Alpha Maddox Steele," he said, "by blood, battle, and oath we welcome you home." Maddox dismounted and stared at the scarred ground where his beta had once stood, where Kieran had made his final stand. "Has anything been forgotten?" he asked quietly. Torrin shook his head. "Nothing, Alpha." Maddox's gaze swept the ridge. "Good." He turned to the crowd gathered in reverence and spoke. "No more councils, no more elders, no more thrones built on ashes." His voice was thunder. "This land belongs to us, to those who bled for it, to those who earned it. If anyone still dares to challenge me." He drew his blade and stabbed it into the earth. Step forward. No one moved. They had already chosen, the last remnants of the old. Pack Council gathered in the ruined stone hall 2 days later. Only 6 remained. Old wolves, strategic ones, political leeches who had survived every regime. They expected negotiation. Maddox gave them war. He stood at the head of the table, Isla beside him, the child in her arms. "This council is disbanded," he said flatly. "One dared to speak. You need us." Maddox tilted his head. "Do I?" the wolf sneered. "Without the council, who will approve your rule?" "I didn't ask for your approval." Another scoffed. "You think the packs will follow your Luna without our backing? She's still a half-blood." That was the last thing he said. Maddox moved faster than any of them could see. He dragged the man across the table and slammed his head into the stone until it cracked. Blood pooled. Silence followed. Then he looked up cold and controlled. "I'm not a politician," he said. "I'm a king." He turned to Isla, who watched with steady eyes. "Do you need them?" She looked at the council, then at her daughter, then back to Maddox. "No." He nodded once, and that night the council fell, not by vote, by judgment. The moon was full over Blackmor, and Isla couldn't sleep. She walked the edges of the outer wall alone, cloak pulled tight against the wind. In her hand she held a single token, a necklace, the one her mother had given her the night she fled their pack, the night her mate turned her into prey, the night she became an exile. She stood beneath the great oak where the last councilman had died and whispered into the dark. "I hated you for so long," she said to the wind, "for letting them ruin me, for not fighting for me." She touched her stomach, still healing, then looked up at the moon. "But I survived anyway. I bled for a kingdom. I birthed a child the gods themselves wanted dead. And I found a mate who'd rather destroy the world than lose me." She closed her fist around the necklace and tossed it into the river. "I'm not running anymore." Behind her, Maddox stepped into the clearing. "I knew you'd come here. I needed to say goodbye." He walked up behind her, his presence like fire and steel. "You still belong to no one," he said softly. She turned. "I belong to you." And for the first time in her life, there was no fear in that truth, only peace. The night of the blood moon, the ritual grounds of Blackmor burned with torchlight. Every pack loyal to Maddox and Isla stood in a wide circle of rogues, elders, warriors, alphas from all corners of the realm. This was not a coronation. It was a claiming. Isla stood barefoot in a white silk gown, her mark visible above her heart. Her hair flowed behind her like a banner. Their child watched from Nyx's arms, golden eyes glowing. Maddox approached shirtless, his body a canvas of scars and power. The wind shifted as he reached her. Tauren stepped into the circle. As is tradition, the alpha may claim his Luna before the pack. No shame, no secrets, no politics, Cassian muttered to Nyx. "So basically, he gets to make out in front of the kingdom." Nyx elbowed him. Maddox stepped close to Isla. "Do you accept me? I always have." He pulled her to him and kissed her not gently, not politely, but like a man who had waited too long and bled too much. The pack howled, wolves dropped to their knees, and in that moment, as her eyes glowed silver and his turned to stormed God's boar, witness, because this wasn't just love, it was dominion, the dawn after the blood. Moon was quiet. Blackmor's war banners were lowered. and new ones were raised white and crimson. A massive gathering filled the valley below the keep. Wolves and humans, shifters and rogues, allies and enemies, turned, loyalists. At the highest terrace, beneath the Watcher's Stone, stood Maddox in black ceremonial armor, blade at his side, and Isla dressed in midnight silk, her crown forged from melted counsel. Relics. Torin held the crown between them. Cassian read the rites. Nyx kept the child safe, though the baby kept glowing with strange pulsing magic that had the entire high table both terrified and enchanted. Cassian's voice rang out, "Do you swear to rule not with law, but with legacy?" Maddox, "I do. To protect not just borders, but blood." Isla, "I do. To reign as king and queen not because of bloodlines, but because you bled together, we do." Torin placed the crown on Maddox's head. Cassian crowned. Isla next. And as they turned to the crowd, Maddox's voice rang clear across the stone. "I am Alpha King Maddox Steele. This is Lunar Queen, Isla Steele. The child of flame is ours. This realm belongs to no one else." And the realm answered in one sound, a unified howl that split the sky. The forbidden throne was no longer forbidden, it was theirs forever, the training yard of Blackamoor was no longer just for warriors. Under the morning sun, Isla stood before a line of women, some young, some scarred, all survivors. She wore no crown, no silk, just leather, her blade, and a gaze that could silence thunder. "You came here for power," she said, pacing slowly. "You think becoming a Lunar is about being chosen." Silence. "No," Isla growled. "It's about choosing yourself. Every Lunar before you was taught to kneel. I'm here to teach you how to burn." At the back, Sarah Packless Rogue, with a jagged scar over her left eye, spoke up. "And if we fail," Isla turned on her heel, "then you die." Gasps rippled through the group. Isla's voice dropped lower. "Because the world doesn't care if you were broken. It only cares what you become. And I intend to make you deadly." Torin leaned against the fence nearby, arms crossed, grinning. "You're terrifying." "I'm effective," Isla replied. That afternoon, she showed them how to fight not with claws or teeth, but with silence, with strategy, with patience. By sunset, they called her Lunar General behind her back, and she led them. The Hall of Laws had not been used in over a year. Dust clung to the corners. The banners of the fallen council still hung tattered. Fading, Maddox stood at the center, his throne untouched behind him. He did not sit. "I summoned you," he said, "to kill a lie." Cassian stood to the right, arms folded. Torin flanked the left. At the center of the chamber, dozens of wolves sat in tense silence. Alpha heirs, bond-bound couples, elders too old to leave quietly. "You were taught," Maddox continued, "that mating bonds are sacred, that they cannot be refused, that rejecting one is death, that choosing wrong is betrayal." He looked at Isla, who entered quietly, their daughter in her arms. "But that's not the truth," he said. "That's control." Murmurs got gasps. One of the older alphas, Ratha, barked. "You dare rewrite the moon's decree." "I dare rewrite mine," Maddox snapped. "And I say this now, Moaf, male or female, is bound to a mate they do not want. No bond overrides choice. No alpha owns a Lunar, and no Lunar is owed a throne." He paused, then drew his blade and shattered the old law plaque with a single strike. "I will not rule a kingdom built on forced chains." Behind him, Isla smiled faintly. and the pack world shifted forever. It happened quietly, too quietly. A broken seal on the nursery door, a scent unfamiliar beneath the baby's blankets, and a scrap of torn cloth that did not belong to any healer or guard. Nyx found it first. Her eyes narrowed, her fangs bared. Tauren confirmed the sigil. Cassian found the blood trails more, almost hidden, when Maddox entered the nursery. Isla was already holding their child tightly, eyes wild. "She's safe," Nyx said. But someone got close. Too close. Maddox's eyes burned silver. Who let them? In Cassian's jaw tightened. "We're checking every name, but it had to be someone on the inside. A traitor in his keep." Maddox turned without a word and stormed into the lower barracks. His rage was a storm breaking doors, ripping apart guard stations, dragging wolves into the cold to sniff their guilt. He interrogated 20 wolves in a night dot, and then he found one healer gone. Missing. A young wolf named Elias, sweet-voiced and quiet. Too quiet. Tauren slammed the traitor to the stone floor. Maddox crouched beside him, blade in hand. "Did they pay you?" he whispered. "Or did you think you'd be a hero?" Elias whimpered, eyes bleeding red. "I didn't mean you meant to touch my daughter." Maddox stood and called the pack to assemble. The traitor stood tied to the center post of the execution ring. Wolves gathered by the hundreds, some from allied packs, some from far away. All knew the law. Touching the air was death, but none had seen what Isla had become. When she stepped into the circle, her hair was silver, her skin shimmered with light and storm. Her child sat in Nyx's arms, watching with eerie calm. Elias sobbed. "Please, Lunai didn't hurt her." "No," Isla said, her voice like wind over broken stone. "But you would have." She lifted one hand, and the sky split open. Lightning arced down not from the moon, but from her. Raw, wild energy. It didn't burn Elias. It peeled his soul. From his body, the pack fell silent as he crumpled, lifeless. Not a mark on him, yet every wolf there could feel what had happened. "She's a goddess." Someone whispered. "No," Maddox said, stepping beside her. "She's mine." Isla turned, lips trembling, power fading slowly. "Was I too cruel?" she asked him softly. Maddox leaned close, kissed her knuckles. "You were perfect." They burned Ilias's body at dawn, not quietly, not in shame, publicly, a warning. Maddox stood at the edge of the fire, surrounded by guards, the ashes of the traitor scattered into the wind, and his name was erased from the keep's ledgers. "I want his line removed from all records," Maddox said coldly. "No bloodline, no title. He never existed." Cassian nodded grimly. Tauren added, "There are whispers. Some say it was too much." "Let them whisper," Maddox said. "Let them fear." Behind him, Isla stepped into the light, the child on her hip. Maddox turned to them, both brushed the baby's hair from her brow, where a mark had begun to form. A crescent moon, ringed in flame. "She have enemies," Isla said. "Then she'll learn to kill them," Maddox replied. They stood together before the flames, and as the first wind of spring broke across Blackamoor, Maddox tightened his grip on Isla's waist and whispered only loud enough for her to hear. "Thought I was dangerous before." She smiled faintly. "They have no idea what we are now." It began with a funeral pyre that refused to burn in the northern ice barrens, where wolves vanished and magic froze in the air. An ancient alpha returned, Darius Morven, once Maddox's brother, in arms, now resurrected by a blood spell older than moonlight. A rogue reported it, first breathless and shaking as Maddox interrogated him in the war room. I saw it his eyes. Black. His wolf is wrong. It doesn't move like it should. Maddox's jaw tightened. Darius is dead. Not anymore, Nyx said, her voice low. And he's not the same. Cassian frowned. You killed him during the Ash Rebellion. Burned him alive. I did. Tauren slid a rune-laced dagger across the table. Then you'll need to do it again. Maddox turned to Isla, who stood silent at the edge of the room, their child tucked safely against her chest. This isn't a war, he said. No, Isla agreed. It's a reckoning. Far to the north, Darius stood atop a jagged cliff, his skin cracking with dark veins. Behind him, a legion of dead-eyed wolves marched. Time to take back what was promised, he whispered. And I'll start with his Luna. It happened during a dream. Or what Isla thought was a dream. She wandered through a black forest under a moonless sky. Her feet bare, the trees whispering things in a language her wolf didn't recognize. A figure waited at the center, tall. Familiar, wrong. Darius, she whispered, but his face flickered. Not just Darius, but something deeper inside him. Something ancient. You've tasted real power now, the voice said, echoing from everywhere. The blood of elders. The scream of prophecy. The fear of gods. Don't you want more? She tried to run. The roots grabbed her ankles. The sky wept black rain. And then the mark burned into her palm. A spiral of shadow, pulsing like a second heartbeat. She woke screaming. Maddox was beside her in seconds. What happened? He demanded, arms already around her. She gasped for breath, clutching her hand. I saw him. He's inside. Me, he marked me. Cassian rushed in next. We have reports from the north. Darius is summoning wolves by name, binding them through dreams. Maddox looked at Isla, and his voice dropped to ice. Then I'll go where he is, and I'll kill him again. But Isla whispered, he doesn't want you. She opened her palm. He wants me. There was only one way to save her, a bloodgate, forged by forbidden magic, buried beneath Blackamoor's catacombs. The cost. A life for a life. But Maddox didn't flinch. I'll find her soul, he said, removing his blade, and I'll bring her back. No matter what I face inside. Nyx grabbed his wrist. You don't even know what's in there. Neither. Do they? Maddox replied, already drawing the ritual circle. Cassian's voice cracked. You're not invincible, Maddox. No, he said, just unwilling to lose her. They laid Isla's unconscious body on the obsidian slab. Her skin glowed faintly with a dark mark. The baby, restless in Tauren's arms, reached for her mother. Maddox bent and kissed Isla's temple. I'm coming, love. And if anyone touches you while I'm gone. He stood, eyes storm dark. They'll pray for death. The gate opened with a scream, and Maddox stepped into the underworld. The underworld was not made of fire. It was made of mirrors, each one showing Maddox a version of Isla broken, bleeding, begging, turning away. He stalked through them all, blade drawn, blood painting his arms. In the distance, a single thread of light led him deeper. Darius's voice echoed. You can't save her. She's not the same. I don't care. She's already made a deal. Her soul is slipping. I said, Maddox growled, I don't care. He found Isla at the edge of a shattered cliff. She stood barefoot, eyes dark, surrounded by whispering shadows. You shouldn't be here, she said, voice distant. I go where you go, he answered. You'll die. Then we die together. The shadows closed in. Maddox dropped his blade and reached for her. You're mine, Isla, even if you hate me, even if you're broken. Her lip trembled. I tried to resist. I don't need you perfect, he said. I just need. You with me? She reached back. Their fingers touched, and the underworld shattered. They woke in the altar chamber. Isla first, then Maddox. The mark was gone from her palm, but a new one burned on Maddox's shoulder, black crescent laced with fire, proof of what he had done. Cashin's voice broke the silence. You were dead for 10 minutes. Maddox sat up slowly, felt like 10 years. Isla reached for their child. She knew. She kept whispering your name. Torin nodded. That kid is terrifying, Nyx added, and probably sacred. Maddox stood fully, gripping Isla's waist. She's ours. That's enough. But as the sun rose, they both saw it etched into the keep's highest spire in blood. This is not the end. You brought her back, but what did you leave behind? Isla's hand found his. Their eyes met. They didn't speak. They didn't need. Two, because whatever they left behind in the underworld, it would be coming for them. The ceremony took place at dusk, in the sacred valley of the ancients, not in the war halls, not in the keep, but where the earth remembered the first shift. Hundreds of wolves' alpha heirs, rogue warlords, former enemies stood in a wide ring, their gazes fixed on the obsidian pedestal at the center. There, Isla stood in a silver tunic, the wind tossing her hair like silk fire. In her arms, their daughter blinked slowly, golden eyes glowing with an ancient knowing. Maddox stood beside them, dressed in ceremonial black, blades strapped across his back. He had not spoken in hours, not since the final mark appeared on their daughter's brow crescent. Moon ringed in flame, with a second halo forming around it. Are you certain? Torin asked him quietly. Maddox didn't look away from his mate or child. She was born of blood, war, and prophecy. Who else could it be? Cassian stepped forward, reading from the old rite, his voice echoing through the mountain. By tooth and truth, by bond and blood, do you declare this child the firstborn heir of the united realm? Maddox spoke first. I do, Isla followed. We do, and then, with no fanfare, Isla knelt and placed the child's hand on the stone altar. Light burst outward, fierce and golden dot. Wolves dropped to one knee instinctively. Some sobbed because it wasn't just an heir that was born. It was the start of a new age. The old scrolls were kept in the Hall of Law, buried deep beneath Blackmoor. Isla stood there now, quill in hand. The parchment before her, older than any living wolf, Cassian, stood nearby, uneasily watching. Do you know what rewriting prophecy means? He asked. Yes, Isla replied calmly. It means they won't control us anymore. She dipped the quill into ink made from ash and rose, oil ritual ink used only once every age. Maddox stepped in behind her. Is it time? She didn't. Look up. If our daughter is to inherit a world not poisoned by fear, someone has to rewrite the rules. Cassian flinched. But the prophecy has never been touched. Then it's time someone did, she said, and began to write. The lunar shall not be hunted. The fated bond shall not shackle. The heir shall not be born in silence, but in fire and howl. The throne belongs to no line. It belongs to those who bled. Maddox watched her with unblinking eyes, and for the first time since his rise to power, he smiled. The white peaks, home of the Silverclaw pack, Maddox's most stubborn former enemies. Once he had threatened to burn their mountains. Now he walked their halls beside Isla, a child, in Nyx's arms, Cassian and Torin flanking them like war shadows. Alpha Rurik met them at the stone table. Never thought I'd see Maddox Steele here without a blade drawn. Maddox's mouth curled. Keep talking, I still might. Rurik barked a short laugh. Isla took the lead. We're not here to surrender or kneel, we're here to unify. You killed half our council, Rurik said. They tried to assassinate. Our daughter Isla answered. Torin muttered, still breathing, aren't you? Cassian kicked him under the table. Rurik leaned forward. So what are you offering? Land treaties, Isla said. Joint patrols. Safe passage between territories. And a seat at the new lunar conclave. Rurik narrowed his eyes. And what do you want in return? Maddox finally spoke. Peace, for now. And when that ends, Maddox smiled coldly. Then I remind everyone why I was king before I had a throne. The table went silent. Then Rurik extended his hand. We'll try it your way, Queen. And the treaty was inked in blood. It was deep in the forest, far from the keep, far from prophecy, just the two of them. The moon hung heavy, casting silver light between the trees. A fire burned low in a circle of ancient stones, ones used only by bonded pairs to renew what time and war had tested. Maddox removed his shirt. Isla stepped barefoot into the circle, dressed in nothing but thin linen and power. They said nothing. At first then, Isla whispered, You've never feared me. Maddox stepped closer. You've always been mine, even before the bond. She lifted her palm to his chest. Then say it again, here, now. No pack, no court, no crown. He cupped her jaw. You are my mate, my Luna, my equal, my fire, my ruin. And you, she whispered, are my storm, my blade, my madness, my salvation. Their lips met slow, then fierce. Their wolves surged together in the air between them, golden and obsidian. Their bond glowed again stronger than before. No longer forbidden, eternal. Years passed. The keep stood stronger than ever. Packs from across the continent trained under Isla's lunas. Treaties held. Rogue births declined. And stories spread of a child with a burning mark who whispered to wolves in their sleep on the highest terrace. Isla stood watching the valley below. Her daughter now eight-sparred with Nyx, her movements sharp and unrelenting. Cassian taught new lawkeepers nearby. Torin led the elite guard on rounds, and Maddox. He stepped behind Isla, wrapping his arms around her from behind, chin resting on her shoulder, still watching everyone like a queen. He murmured, I am a queen, she replied. He smirked, still mine, always. They stood in silence, as the wind carried laughter, howls, and the scent of peace across their land. A kingdom born of blood, a throne once forbidden, a love that defied death. And Isla was still marked, still powerful, still his dot forever.